Celtics Reddit podcast.
Marcus Smart is so good.
Hello and welcome to the Celtics Reddit podcast. My name is Ben Vallis. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. And look, if you are a Celtics fan, you're probably not doing super well. So we're doing another fan therapy pod today where we just let it all out. We've got Joe here, our New Zealand correspondent. Joe, Jaylen Brown is out for the season. We lost the play-in tournament against the Heat. We're almost definitely play-in bound at this point with the Heat clinching at least the 6th seed today. Starting with today, is there anything that we learned from this game that we don't already know at this point?
Gosh, Ben, I'd love to tell you something different.
Are we beyond that?
Well, it depends. It depends what the subject is, right? You know, did we learn much about this season's version of the Celtics? Sadly, I don't think we did. I don't know, Ben. Have you got some takeaways, mate? Help me lift me spirits.
Look, to be honest, no, I don't. I mean, this was just a repeated formula. We've seen it all season. We saw it just in the most recent game against the Heat, where and the formula goes both ways, where as a fan, you're going into it, and I feel like I've done this every single game this season. I'm sure most people can relate, going thinking, you know, this is the game. Like, it's a must-win game. I know they're going to turn it around. I know they're going to come out all guns blazing, and I know they're going to win this game. They have to. Like, even having lost the last game against the Heat, they've got to split it. Then we've got the tiebreaker. Then we can avoid the play-in tournament. And really, with today, with the loss, it was just the final nail in the coffin. We're all inside it. We're all being buried, Kill Bill style, except we can't one-inch punch our way out of this one. It's over. I mean, I can get some takeaways from the game, I guess. I don't know if it necessarily matters, big picture. What do you think?
I keep returning to a theme a little bit, Ben, and at this point, like today was the Celtics performing exactly to my sort of rational expectations, and it still doesn't negate, right? Like, we've got to keep hoping, you know, like, you've just got to. I think we've got to find a way to enjoy the rest of the season, right? So, you know, without wanting to get too Pollyanna-ish this early into the fan therapy podcast, you know, maybe just put that as a caveat, all right? So things are going to get a little dark, I think, in the next 45 minutes.
No, it's okay. That's what therapy is, right? You've got to get out the good. You've got to get out the bad. You don't necessarily walk away from one session, although I feel like this is the 5th one we've done this year. Don't necessarily walk away healed. Sometimes it's just about exercising the demons. I think that's what we're here to do.
There are, that's true. But look, I think we should... Look, to be honest, even if there aren't reasons to hope, you've still got to hope if you're a fan, you know? But we're both things. We're two things, right? Like, we're the fan that just hopes against hope that everything goes good. And then we're also the armchair GM, because every fan is an armchair GM, right? Who thinks, hey, what do we need to do to make this thing better, right? So those are they're just two different things. And right now, the once again, I feel like I've probably repeated myself, so sorry, all 5 listeners.
Joe's holding a screwdriver right now, by the way. He's brought it to the therapy session.
I've got an entire set of hand tools here. Let's see what else is maybe more appropriate. I've got some pliers.
Fix the Celtics with them.
Maybe I could apply those to the teeth. We've got a Stanley knife here. Yeah. So that could get dark. Moving on. No, look, we've got to do both, right? We've got to walk and chew gum. The Good to Great. I'll keep telling you this. You know, if you've ever read Good to Great, there's a story about an American general who was a POW in, I think, the World War II. He was a Japanese POW, and his whole thing was, hey, you've got to be realistic about what you face, but you can't ever lose hope. All right, so. Having emphasized the need not to lose hope, let's be realistic about what we face for a little while.
I think that's more than reasonable. Before we get into that bigger picture future outlook, there are a few takeaways from the game today Wouldn't be the Celtics Reddit podcast if we didn't get through some fan reactions to the game. So just quickly on today's game, Joe, user Swag and Tail wrote they had 31 assists in this game, which, I didn't look at the box score after the game, Joe. I just couldn't bear to look at it. That was surprising, given that we were at one point of the season, through the first, half of the season thereabouts, I think we were 28 in assists overall. 31 assists today, and they go on to say, I don't think our offense was the problem. 121 points is more than enough. The team defense is just broken. Like that's been a theme throughout the year, right? If you had to choose one element of the team that's been the biggest failure point, would you agree that the defense has been the biggest problem consistently, other than COVID?
Me personally, I'm a little bit offense centric in how I view the game, so naturally I'm going to say no. That said, defense is a means of lowering your variance as a team. I've been thinking a lot about variance this week, and our defense has been bad, and for the reasons where in the past it hasn't been as good as it might, namely defensive rebounding, but it has just felt like we have lacked force on that end, and of course it's contributed to it. I guess, defense is hard, man. Like, it's hard to understand, and I tend to more pick up on the offensive habits. But yeah, look, it's not necessarily the lowest hanging fruit, right? But it's if you bring a ladder, right? Defense is like bringing yourself a ladder to the game, I suppose.
Yeah, I get what you mean though. Like when we're we've got a defensive possession ongoing, I don't necessarily look at our defense. Like, that's not my instinct. My instinct is to watch the other team play offense. Sure. And therefore, you kind of have to force yourself to evaluate the defense. But statistically, it's been an outlier for us. Like, there's no denying it. It's been a consistent point of failure for the team this season. So
with largely the same personnel involved. And that's right. The odd thing. I think look, I'm a Marcus Smart apologist. But I'm assuming that a good majority of people listen to the Rosillo Simmons podcast, just gone, where Rosillo tears strips off Smart. Like, he's never liked him. Like, I get that, that he's never liked him, and some guys games you just don't like. I like Smart's game, but he kind of went through this play-by-play sequence where he talked about Smart getting over aggressive, compensating for it by, being even more overly aggressive and taking bad shots. And I thought, well, maybe he's got a point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that from you, Joe. Okay.
Well, it's just more, it's probably exposed maybe more of a blind spot for me as a fan, which is, I have way stronger opinions about what we're doing offensively than what we're doing defensively. But when someone lays out, the defense I'd give for Smart is that he makes mistakes of aggression, and I love that. But he is he's the best defensive player on a team that's not playing good defense, right? Like, he is a tone setter there, And I think it's worth questioning, why we are so bad defensively with the same people from last year.
Yeah, it diminishes his role. If you're a defensive-minded leader, supposedly leading the defense, and that defense sucks, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
So I'm curious to hear, though, Joe, you said you've got stronger opinions on the offensive side of things. Like, now's the time. Like, let's hear it. What are your thoughts?
Look, it's just time. It's just, everyone's probably, who listens to this is probably not going to be surprised to hear me say it. I just don't like Tatum's game. I just don't like it. It doesn't mean he's not good, right? I just don't like his game. I don't like LeBron's game. Like, I'm just not a fan of his game. And I'm just not a fan of Tatum's style of play. Okay?
Well, just to add, I'm glad that you added the LeBron section there, because it goes to say, or qualifies, that it doesn't necessarily mean that Tatum is bad, just that you're not a fan of his game.
But Tatum is not as good as LeBron. So so we can talk about two things here. And I don't like his game, partly for some stylistic reasons and partly for some flaws. And okay, I'm just flipping sick of him not being able to shoot a left-handed layup. Like, I'm sorry, Drew Hanlon, but like maybe he should have learned how to jump off his right foot and finish with his left hand. Maybe he should have learned how to do that. Maybe if he did that, he'd actually be a threat driving left. He has to bring the ball back to his right every single time he drives left. Okay? Now, for tonight, for example, okay, we close it. We were within 3 with like 4 minutes left in the third quarter. Okay? Now, the trouble with this, right, is when you miss layups all the time or get blocked, right, which happens a lot when he goes left or can't finish properly because he can't go left, okay? Yeah. So it happened tonight, right? We were down. If you look at the play-by-play, it was either the offensive possession directly after. I think Kemba hits the 3, we close it to 3. Then I'm pretty sure Robinson hit like a really great shot, like off movement, like a real JJ Redick style shot. We're down 6.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Tatum comes through in a lane and he drives and he does this thing where he tried to do that. He did it a lot in his rookie year. He did like the swoopy thing with his right hand. It's BS, man. Like, I'm sorry, but like this is coaching 101. This is what we teach little kids how to do. Tatum, figure it out. Like, figure it out, man. It's such a hole in your game. It's bullshit. Like, it's bullshit that he can't do it.
What's the swoopy thing with his right hand? Like,
he'll jump off his left hand and extend with his right arm while he is going to the left-hand side of the hoop. Yeah, he got away with it a lot in his rookie year. Now everyone is shutting that shit down, right? Like, and so if he can't do it, right, what he winds up doing is not getting to the hole. He's literally taking away half the floor. It's just like a fundamental thing that just drives me up the wall. Just drives me up the wall.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's that. And then, but more importantly, aside from all of this is why I don't like his game. It's a mentality thing, man. The only thing he knows that he can get every time, right, is the sidestep 3 or the fadeaway on the baseline. That's the only thing he knows he can get. And newsflash, that's low variance. You want to know why LeBron's 30 points are better than, say, I don't know, like, let me pick a person. LeBron's 30 points are better than Jordan Clarkson's 30 points. How can that be? It's because LeBron comes with the lowest variance on those 30 points, right? What does that mean? It means that you are like never down 20, right? Like, how often is a LeBron team actually down 20? Right, you're always within striking distance. Variance matters so much. It is the most underemphasized part of analytics. And Tatum's pet moves are high variance moves. They just are. And that means that, hey, Yahoo when he's hitting them, but guess what? If he's not hitting them, we're going nowhere, right? And you cannot, like, low variance is just crucial to drive winning from your best player. Anyway, rant over.
No, that's good stuff. Is part of what you're saying that a higher percentage of Tatum's shots come from a desperation standpoint than most other players at his caliber or above?
It's not so. No, I don't know if I'd call it desperation, Ben. Lack of imagination. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. I think he. The trouble with the way he plays is he can't put pressure on the hoop consistently, right? It's not some outlier like refs hate him that he doesn't draw fouls. It's because he's just not aggressive with the ball, right? He the only moves he has are moves that take him away from contact. Okay, he just doesn't put enough pressure on the hoop. Now these are relative terms, right? Because he puts more pressure on the hoop than, I don't know, like Semi Ojeleye. You know?
How dare you?
But the thing is, man, like, he's been cast as a number one guy. Yeah. And frankly, he just doesn't fit the bill. He just doesn't fit the bill as a number one guy. I'm sorry. That doesn't mean we trade him, right? It just means you got to accept that reality. He's not that dude. He's maybe Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce couldn't be the guy either, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. You wouldn't say that Paul Pierce was at times the number one guy when part of that big three, or do you think it was KG all the way through?
Well, for a start, I probably maybe that was a bad comparison. Like, can you remember much about Paul Pierce's free throw rate, Ben?
No.
It was very,
really.
very good.
Not at this point.
It was very, very good. Right, and free throws. Once again, I'm just going to come like low variance will be my like verbal tick throughout this podcast. I think free throws are a super low variance way to get points. It's probably why, even though I hate Harden, it's probably why the Rockets are so good, even though they're around him. You know, even though I hate Harden's game. Like, so this isn't all stylistic hate, right? It's partly an effectiveness thing, right? Like Tatum is just not effective enough to drive winning. He's just not.
But a week ago, before the shit really hit the fan, I feel like as a fan base and, you know, even reporters and people who are supposed to be objectively looking at the team, we're all celebrating the notion that Tatum was getting to the line at a higher rate. He was taking it to the hoop and driving at a higher rate and even finishing at a higher rate and addressing a lot of these points that you are, you know, rightfully raising, Joe, because it hasn't been consistent, but there's certainly been a promising, if not major, uptick in a lot of those facets of his game, sort of in the back end of this season. Like, we have seen him do much better in those facets of the game. The left-handed finishing is absolutely a problem. It's something that Pure Sweat, Drew Hanlon, they need to add that stuff to their program, like yesterday. But I mean, he has been improving in a lot of those areas that mentioned there, Joe. I feel like I have to call that out. You obviously don't agree with that,
bro? Like, did we need these last 3 games?
Yes, that's the problem. It's not consistent, and I don't know if we'll ever understand why he can't play like he did in, you know, certain games. Like, not even that recent stretch, you know, where he had the 60-point game and the, you know, 53-point game or whatever, but you know, pretty much any game that he's ever played against the Clippers, he's always played that way with this certain aggression. You can see it, like, it's almost in his eyes, and he does take it to the hoop aggressively, and he does, you know, exhibit the ability to do that. It just, for whatever reason, doesn't happen every night. Is that like who he is? Is that what we should expect for the next few years? Or is that something that he can address along with the left-handed finishing in an offseason or two?
Ben, we need to embrace the darkness for a second, bro. Like, what if he doesn't? Like, you know, because, you know, what if he doesn't, man? Okay?
Why wouldn't he?
Why wouldn't he? Why hasn't he?
Yeah.
You know, like...
It's a great rebuttal. It's a great rebuttal. I don't know.
Like, what I'm getting at is, like, I've forever bounced back and forward. Who is he, right? Like, even if I don't love how he plays, if he's effective, right? And, like, I'm still cheering for him, right? Like, if he's on our team, yay, when the 3 goes in, I'm excited too, just like everybody else, right? I'm putting my analytical hat here on, right? And it probably sounds like I'm a bit more emotional than that. Maybe. Okay, but when the pressure's on, what does he revert to? When we need a point...
Sidestep threes.
Ben is drinking, like, maybe it's Midori, maybe it's, like, green Fanta. I don't know what you have over there.
Quick sidebar, obviously. Went to the Hunter Valley recently, went on a wine tour. The last place they took us to was this, like, fermented spirits place, and we'd already had a lot of wine at that point, and we bought some of their lime-infused vodka. And so that's what this is, and some soda water. It's actually very low in calories and healthy for one who's drinking anything, but it looks very silly.
It's high in fiber and it's low in fat.
It's high in alcohol, and it's a therapy session, and that's what I need. So anyway, I digress.
No, look, if Tatum's not a number, like I jump into conclusions, of course, but no, this is my conclusion for now. I just don't think he's a real number one guy. And that means that, I don't think that means you just trade him because he's not the number one guy or anything like that. But it means you've got to build your team accordingly. I also think personality-wise, dude's just a little passive. I just don't know that he's like he's competitive. Like, he made it to the NBA. There's lots of 6'8" guys out there that don't make it to the NBA and don't get good. But, like, Is he Jimmy Butler competitive?
He just has those flashes in those same games that I was referring to. It's like he has multiple personalities or something, because he does come out with that flavor occasionally where he's like screaming after the N1 compared to other games where he's screaming at the ref after not getting an N1. He does have, I would say, 25% of the games this year where he comes out looking competitive and like a boss and you know, like with some true grit. And unfortunately, you need to do that like 75% of the time, if not 100, not 25% of the time. But he does exhibit that, and that's what makes it so difficult to digest.
Man, anyone can do anything some of the time, right? Like,
let's ask my wife. Sorry.
But you know what I mean? Like, I can go out there and I can hit a 3-pointer in an NBA game. It's not going to happen very frequently, but you know what I mean? Like, you are what you do, right?
Yeah.
And I just think...
Yes, you're right.
Look,
you are right.
Look, yeah. Look, I'm leaning into my Tatum pessimism, right? But I just think he's miscast in this role. And there's for me, it comes down to what does this guy go to when the going gets tough? What he goes to is he goes to the sidestep three, and that is just not an aggressive way to play. Like, would you agree that that's an unaggressive move?
Yeah, it's fun when it goes in, but it's like if you could choose between going out and hunting like a bear and bringing home enough food for the village and feed the village, or if you just like had a cookie jar with a couple of cookies left in it and you were like, can't be bothered with the hunting, I don't want to feed the whole village, I'm just going to have one of my cookies and go to sleep. So the sidestep three is like, it's reaching into that cookie jar. It's the easy option. It's not feeding the team. It's not carrying the team. It's not willing the team to victory. So
it creates no pressure. It creates no pressure on the defense.
Yeah, and Brad Stevens is always harping on about pressure on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively, putting pressure on the rim. And we just haven't seen it consistently. It's been a problem. On the Tatum thing, by the way, this is from a user, ToiletWater23, who writes, ready for the downvotes from Tatum fans. Tatum showed no heart or effort through the first three quarters on anything other than scoring, referring to the game today. Passing, how many dumb, lazy passes did he throw at the top of the key after holding the ball for 5 seconds? Defense was getting beat backdoor early, chose not to run back on defense, and didn't chase guys around screens. The stats do not tell the whole story here for Tatum. With Brown out, Tatum should be in the mindset to step up and lead, if not by words, then by action. He did neither. Body language was terrible for 3 quarters, just like this team this year. He decides to pick it up in the fourth once we're down by 20. It's ridiculous in the most important game of the year for our number one guy to come out and play the way he did. Just does not indicate a good rest of the season. So
yeah, bloody
like
look, Ben,
summing up everything you said.
What do you actually look, Ben? I mean, I know you're kind of providing a counterpoint here, but like, what do you actually think Tatum is? Like, because if he's Kawhi Leonard or if he's Kevin Durant, that's one thing. If he's actually just Paul George, which is a really good player, right? That's another thing entirely. Who is he?
I think that the future has not been written yet, and on any given day you wake up and that ceiling has become higher or it's lowered. And certainly with how the season has gone, it's easier to say he's more of a Paul George than a Kawhi. I think it's okay to say that it's too early to really identify him or categorize him as one or the other. But he's certainly, for me, or at least for my expectations, floating between the Paul George and the Kawhi tiers, which is concerning because we've signed him to a max contract. He's signed for 5 years. And if you look at all of the championship-winning teams over the past, like, almost forever, they each possess one of what you have referred to, Joe, as a world-bending, correct me if I've got that wrong. Reality bending player. And as far as reality-bending players go, I think Kawhi is maybe even at the bottom end of that tier. And my concern is that Kawhi is Tatum's absolute ceiling. And so even if he's as good as I think he could possibly be, my worry is that that's not even enough to get the Celtics home, win them a championship. And that is worrying based on where our roster is, where our cap situation is, and the fact that we've kind of gone through the last 5 years or so, and if Tatum is the one true hit that we've made with all of those assets that have come and since gone, then I don't know, man. I don't know. And that's the end of my comment. It's open-ended. I have no idea where this is going.
I feel like you started by saying, hey, look, I don't know. We need time to figure it out. And then you kind of, by the end, you're sort of like, well, I guess, like the rebuild's over. So we've got to now actually construct a team, right, in accordance with what we have. And we've got to, take the best possible course of action, right? The next best step.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Fair.
And, you have to kind of make an assessment, right? Like you don't know, but you've got to make a guess now, because in a year's time or 2 years' time, right, you run out of options. Like, I'll just give an example, though. Like, if we thought, say, Tatum was Kevin Durant or someone of that, that sort of stature of player, it would make no sense for us to trade him for, say, the number 3 pick in the 2018 draft, who was Luka Doncic. Now, I promise you, if we had called up the Atlanta Hawks and offered them Jason Tatum for the number 3 pick, we would have got it. They might have even given us some stuff. Do you remember how hot Jason Tatum was after the 2018 playoffs?
Yeah, after the booming. Yeah.
I mean, look, I still wouldn't trade Jason Tatum for Trae Young, But after the booming, that's right. He's so good. He's so good. He's so good. All that sort of stuff, right? Brian Windhorst, I'm confused now, was gassing him up, right? Okay, so if you could rewind the clock, right, and you go back and you would make that offer, would the Celtics be better off right now?
With Doncic instead of Tatum?
Like, I'm just creating a hypothetical, right? So right now, there are opportunities that are available to us. We don't even, as fans, necessarily know what they are, right? But there are moves that you can make if you make a correct assessment about Tatum's stature as a player, right? You might trade him for Cade Cunningham. You might trade him for something else. You might say, you know what? We need a different type of player around him. So we trade Jaylen Brown for Ben Simmons or something like that, Any number of things, but like that's kind of contingent on what you think he is. Am I making sense?
I'm starting to feel dirty, like I've wandered off, into the red light district or something. I like somewhere where I shouldn't be.
This is fan therapy, Ben.
But yeah, I mean, but partially because I buy a little bit of what you're saying. Like just to backpedal a little bit, like this has been a weird season. And I think a lot of rational people would respond, not that take isn't rational at all, because it is, and I think it's well thought out, but a lot of people would respond saying it would be wrong to have any major takeaways from this season based on the circumstances. And
those people may or may not be named Larry? Like, I don't...
I think I saw, I can't remember, I might have been King of Pants or another very common, notable Reddit user. But, like as far as COVID, that has been a huge factor this season. And the response to that has been like, well, why hasn't it affected other teams so badly? And to that, I think like different people are affected differently by COVID. We know this, right? 2 different young, healthy adults could get COVID. One of them could end up in hospital. One of them could be completely asymptomatic. Different teams, they're comprised of different people. And so I think it's therefore okay to then, if not fully, then partially blame COVID for this shitty season. So our team is comprised of different players from other teams. It's completely reasonable to accept that, yeah, we were more shittily affected by COVID than other teams. Like, it's not a level playing field. I think that's an acceptable takeaway. COVID wrote off this season. We didn't see the sort of the progression from Tatum that we were hoping for. I think we certainly saw it from Jaylen Brown. And it's okay to sort of just take stock and move on and not give up on Tatum yet.
I'm not suggesting we actually give up on him as a member of our team. What I'm saying is that you've got to build your roster around your, how you conceive of him as a player. And that may involve moving him, and most likely not. But you've still got to make you've still got to plan accordingly. And the final thing, just on is the season representative? It's very representative of a team that underperforms relative to expectations game to game.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So
That's fair.
Yes, would we have won more games without COVID? Of course we would have. Would we have been just as disappointing? Yeah, we would have been just as disappointing, right? We would have won some games by a little bit that we shouldn't have been, we might have completed a few of those comebacks, right? That we might have been only gotten down 12 when we got down, 21 on occasions, right? All that sort of stuff. But when push comes to shove, man, how do you, are you satisfied that this team has performed up to expectations for this year? Game to game?
No, not at all.
Right.
I mean, based on where we ended last season, of course not.
But just
no.
so COVID could account for the game to game thing, right? If you have a guy out with COVID, you might adjust. You might, for example, when we played Philly immediately after Tatum got COVID, right? I wasn't disappointed with those two losses. I was okay with that. Mm. It's when we have this week and the stretch before where we went Chicago, I think Charlotte, OKC, right?
Yeah.
The Brooklyn Nets get down 20. And that is representative, right? How you go against the spread, if the spread in air quotes, is indicative of who you are,
I think one of the... Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. One of the key differences with our team compared to teams that maybe did... successful teams, so teams well above 500 that did perform according to expectations, is that our two best players are 23 and 24 years old, and in a weird way, because of their tenure and their playoff experience, we consider them veterans, and then we've built around them largely with even younger players. Two of the more notable ones are even rookies, in fact, and sophomores. I don't know if maybe that goes to say that my expectations were way off to begin the season, but looking back now through our lack of success, do you think that is sort of a recipe for disaster and for a recipe for a team to perform well under expectations, given the youth and the that our veteran presence was Jeff Teague and Tristan Thompson?
That's right. He used to play for us. Holy smokes. Yeah. Okay, does experience matter or does age matter?
I definitely both. I can say that as someone who is older than I was once, and age definitely matters just in terms of how you navigate through certain challenges in life. No matter your experience with a particular thing, for me personally, at least in my experience, age has enabled me to deal with, menial challenges, regular challenges in a much more efficient way.
Why?
So I think age matters.
Why is that?
Well, the easy response is because with age comes experience.
Yes,
of course.
It's a very easy response. It is a bloody gotcha.
I don't think it's a gotcha. I think that your mind and your brain, biologically grows and changes, and you change inherently as a person beyond 25, which is when they say your brain supposedly stops growing. At least that's been my experience. So I think age is a factor. And it's certainly, from a mentor standpoint, if you're... I think in this case, for this particular team and the expectations we have on our star players, our 24 and 23-year-old star players, I think, and maybe they attempted this with bringing Evan Turner on board, but I think they need more wisdom in their ears. And I think, there's an age element to that, not just an experience element. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay. I think every year of experience is a data point. And we now have, in the case of Tatum, this is year number... Is it 4? It is 4 years. It's the 4th year.
Mm-hmm.
We are...
Yep.
So we've got these data points, right? They add up. And at the start, we now have a data point, right? It's very hard to project. Okay? We now have 4 data points. Okay? It's getting a little easier to project, right, where it's going to end up. And this is where, I don't like those age comparisons. because we know what he's like in the NBA. Like, he is a 25 a game scorer. He has been for 2 years, effectively, right? Yeah. And what is that? What is Tatum's version of 25 a game add up to? Like, what does it look like for your team when Tatum is the guy and he's scoring 25 a game?
Well, we've just seen it.
Sorry. We've just seen it, right? And it doesn't translate, right? It just doesn't translate in the same way that LeBron's 25 a game translates. Now, you know, I'm not expecting him to be LeBron. Like, Tatum is a success. Like, even though I absolutely meant what I said before, Tatum is a success as a draft pick. Massive success. It's very hard to find people that good. Very hard to find Paul Georges. But guess what? If Paul George is the dude, Ben, what's happening to your team, man?
Playoff P is losing in the playoffs. Playoff T. Playoff Tatum.
Playoff P your pants, bro. You know? Like, and so as armchair GMs, we need to be doing our duty and equipping the Celtics to work around this. Like, what kind of a player do we need around Tatum to unlock him?
Okay, great point. That was my next question for you, Joe. So
no,
you
I asked the question. You got to answer.
You're asking me. Okay, I think that we have a positional need at the 5, which at times this season, and there's definitely a correlation. I don't have the stats, unfortunately. So those good Tatum games I mentioned, I'd be curious to see how many of them included Rob Williams playing, say, 22 or more minutes, or even starting. Because certainly we know Rob Williams starting, our record was something like 10-2. So that's good. I think that we have a positional need at the 5 because I think that is something that Tatum can play off of. We saw it from time to time with the Tice Seal that really opened up Tatum's ability to get to the rim. Tristan Thompson just doesn't have that. Because of Rob Williams' ability to, he did exhibit the ability to seal in a Tice-like manner at times, but also his ability to open up the floor and the lane as a lob threat, and his ability to move the ball. That's a huge positional need that Tatum really benefits from. So that's the first thing I'd be looking at. On top of that, I think we need like a mature playmaking guard. Some might say that Smart is that. After this season, I wouldn't necessarily say that he's a mature playmaking guard, in that he often jacks up immature-minded shots. Kemba is a score-first guard. He's a defensive 0, and as much as I like Kemba's game in a vacuum, I don't think it complements Tatum at all. So I think there's another need there. So a 5 and a 1, and then I think you're probably okay with Fournier and JB on the court with him already if we can fill those holes at the 1 and 5.
So
what do you think about that, Joe?
I think as much as anything, we need somebody else whose personality the team can be formed by.
Interesting.
Okay. So for example, if you were to say, Joe, straight up, we're offering you, with the Toronto Raptors, we're offering you straight up Kemba Walker for Kyle Lowry. Oh my gosh, I would jump on that so fast.
Yeah, completely. Yes.
Right. And he's a little old, right? But, this is an example of like how we don't think laterally enough, right? Like, I've said this before, but imagine if, right, we'd had the vision to go out and get Chris Paul at the point in time when you would have got stuff to take him on, Yeah. We would be so much better. Like Tatum, to me, if Tatum was playing off Chris Paul, far out, he would be looking great. Oh my gosh, he would be looking great.
2021 free agent, Chris Paul, by the way. Not going to happen.
But, I think Chris Paul is an example of somebody who the team, for better or for worse, right, the team takes on his personality and is good enough. Like, unfortunately, Smart's just not like, I love him. He's my favorite player. Probably always will be my favorite player from this era, but he's not enough of a difference maker offensively for the team to take on his personality. And it matters. It does. Like, I can't pretend that's not the case.
Yeah, and to use your your method from earlier. There's enough smart data points from through the years now, and enough different rosters that he's played with that he's great. He's useful at times, but he's not necessarily. I was going to say he's not necessarily a winning ingredient, but I think he could be a winning ingredient, and that's where he holds the most value as a potential trade piece, which I want to get to shortly. But he's just not it for us, it seems, especially if, like you're saying, Joe, if we're looking to build around Tatum. Smart is apparently not a complementary piece.
He's a sixth. He is a sixth man. Like he's not a starter. He just doesn't bring enough offensively, and he's great. He'd be a finisher on almost any team, but he really was optimized as a sixth man. Yeah.
Yep. Moving on. We're going to have plenty of time to talk about Tatum and the future of the team, throughout the off season, which may start soon for the Celtics. The Jaylen Brown injury. So Shams Charania tweeted recently, the Celtics say All-Star Jaylen Brown has been diagnosed with a torn ligament in his left wrist and is out for the remainder of the season. Joe, is this a where were you when you heard the news level event? Or did you just shrug it off when you heard it, I guess?
I can't remember where I was when I heard the news.
Okay.
So where were you?
Sitting on my couch, just hanging out. I think I might have been waiting for the Celtics game to start. I can't remember.
Was it
to be honest.
Saturday?
I was sitting on my couch, but I'm often sitting on my couch. Yeah. But weirdly, it provided me with just a wave of relief because, yes, it was disappointing for about 5 seconds, but then just like relief and a sudden acceptance that the season's over. Like, it's definitely over now, and our expectations are lowered, a la 2018.
Yeah, this is stages of grief. We did that podcast once, didn't we? Yeah.
Might have been our first fan therapy pod, but like it's over. Like it's definitely already over, but now it's really fucking over, and that's kind of fine to just like now we can all collectively accept that, no matter where you were with your expectations for the team. Like, and that's kind of nice. And like I'm kind of looking forward to the playoffs. Some teams that I'm excited about. It's I feel freed.
Yeah, your Nicolas Cage gif.
Yeah, Con Air. Yeah. Stepping out of the plane.
Okay, but what does that say about what's left? Okay, let's think about who we've got left. We've got Tatum, who's still playing. We've got Kemba Walker, who's scored 30 in the last 3 games. We've got Fournier, who's playing really, really good. We've still got Smart.
Totally.
That's not like... I hate it when people always pretend like teams don't have depth when like their ninth man isn't like an all-star. The Celtics have as much depth as anybody, right? I still feel like you just kind of have to use this as a referendum on Tatum's ability to drive winning. And that's one thing. But if he is that guy, this is the flip side, right? Let's just say I'm wrong about Tatum, right? Then you still have reason to hope.
I hope that you are wrong about Tatum, so that I do have reason to hope.
There you go, Ben.
Absolutely.
There you go, Ben. Get back in the plane, Nicolas Cage.
John Cusack's here to put you back in your cage. I don't remember the plot to Con Air, by the way, so I have no idea if that analogy is accurate.
It's a plane full of cons from memory.
Yeah, in the air. So on Tatum there. So first of all, if you're interested in like the technicalities of the Jaylen Brown injury, it's a torn scapholinate ligament. I definitely didn't say that right. In his left wrist. The recovery time from the surgery is anywhere between 3 to 6 months. It's the same injury that got Romeo Langford, who was very much out for 6 months. So, and apparently this was reported by Chris Grenham, and posted to the sub by Horseshoe Overlook. Tweeted this quote from Jason Tatum. Obviously tough losing JB. I talked to him before. He called me and told me what was going on. He said Brown was weighing his options when he was called, and Tatum was supportive of him getting his surgery right away to do what was best for long term. Tatum was quoted as saying, "From the beginning, I told him I'm always supportive of people doing what's best for them and taking care of himself and his body first, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, we need him and we'd love to have him, but we know that health comes first." Tatum writing off the season with that call to Jaylen Brown. Joe? Or
sure sounds like it, don't it?
It's all part of his flawed personality. Are we getting to something here?
Maybe. Like, I know you're just being facetious, and I'm not trying to, like, I'm not really having a go here, but, like, maybe. Man. Oh, you'll be sick of me talking about this, but Gordon Hayward voted with his feet, and honestly, Gordon Hayward was right, in my view. The Celtics are not materially closer to competing than the Charlotte Hornets are. That's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, that's a rabbit hole that, this is a therapy session where we're supposed to not necessarily, like I said, walk away feeling better, but at least embark on the road to recovery. Joe.
All right, do you want me to just take myself out of the darkness now? If you had enough,
like, I don't want you to fake it. Like,
I'm not faking it. There's a duality here. There's a duality.
Okay, what's the other side of this?
Well, the other side of it is kind of a lot of, it's the same things I said before, but just with a different tone, right? Like it's really hard to find a Paul George type. Like, there's less than 15 of them in the league at any one time, and we've definitely got one of them, and maybe two, right? That's not nothing, but it's still not necessarily enough. And, like, it's actually not, it's not the slight that it sounds. Like, Anthony Davis can't drive winning, right? Like, he can't. He doesn't. We saw it in New Orleans. He had Drew freaking Holiday on that team, man. And they couldn't really compete at the highest level, right? Like, it doesn't mean that. But hell, would you like Anthony Davis on your team? You sure would,
Sure.
So it means that if the Celtics can find the right pieces around them, then, hey, there's a chance for something to happen. But the downside is, look, we're at the end of the rebuild cycle. The cupboard's bare, Who's the next piece? And I just don't think we're close enough, right? This is, like, I was initially super pro the Fournier trade. Flip. Yeah. Now I'm going negative again.
That's okay. This is a safe space.
Okay,
Joe.
Look, here's a reason to hope. I think Fournier is worth re-signing. Even though I don't think we're close enough as a team, I think we need Fournier, because if we're ever going to do anything, we need some salary. And we've got those bird rights, and we can bring him back. And he'll make our team better in the short term. I'm worried that the ownership group will size up our prospects for the future and say, you know what, not close enough to justify the tax bill. So that's a stink one. But so we've got two guys that are really hard to get, right? And we're still probably, like, if the team comes back as currently constituted, they're probably still going to make the playoffs next year. Like, I'd be really surprised if they didn't make the playoffs in the next year. They might even be like a 50-win team. And guess what? Like, that's way better than 2/3 of the league. That's still a season to enjoy.
Yeah, I'm super high on Fournier. I think he brings a lot, and obviously wasn't very familiar with his game in Orlando, not having watched a lot of Orlando Magic games recently, but I was surprised at how proficient he is at actually getting to the rim and sort of penetrating that first line of defense, and then, like, with a strong take to the rim or making the right pass. I didn't expect that from him. For some reason, I sort of just expected him as an overpaid spot-up shooter, but he's way more than that. And I think, at the very least, like you said, Joe, he's a valuable asset to have for future moves. Totally. So it's definitely a win-win, whether he plays long-term or whether he's traded. I think it's a win-win to use those bird rights to sign him up long-term. Sort of moving on to, I guess, more like sort of future prospects for the Celtics. This is a post by user Chrismatic13. The Celtics will have to trade the players you don't want them to. They go on to say, now, I'm not campaigning for Time Lord or Marcus Smart to be traded this offseason, but this post is to make a larger point. There are those that think this team needs to make a trade and add a significant piece. You're not trading either of the Jays. I agree with this, but how can you land another complimentary piece by refusing to trade Rob Williams and or Marcus Smart? This signals a bigger problem with the fan base, where you guys have an over-attachment to players. I'm sorry, but no one is trading a key starter for Grant Williams, Shemi Ojeleye, and a second-round draft pick. You need to give up great players in order to land them. We don't have that many great prospects. So we've kind of hovered around, this point, this segment throughout the whole podcast so far, Joe. But looking ahead this offseason, Marcus Smart's contract, Evan Fournier's contract, very tradable chunks of salary. Is there a move you have in mind, or a series of moves you have in mind that, and again, going back to building around Jason Tatum, is it something that you think they're going to pull the trigger on this offseason to do that?
I think that guy's exactly right, and I think we have said as much on the pod, which is, like, people only want the good guys on your team. That's who they trade for.
Yeah,
and he's exactly right that even our best guys don't add up to that much of a package, right? So, do I have a guy in mind? I've always been a little intrigued. If you're really going to shake things up, I've always been intrigued with a Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons swap. Always been intrigued with that, and I think if Philly, say they're out in, it's pretty hard to imagine them being out in anything short of the conference finals, because who's 4? 4 is gonna, the 4-5 is probably going to be what, New York, Atlanta, right?
Yep.
Flip, I'd love to see Miami, Philly, though. I'd love to see Miami, Philly.
Could happen.
Yeah. Let's say they're out in the second round, right? They're going to be looking to mix things up. So that's one prospect. I think Simmons is very, very flawed, but he is a difference-making player. He really is, man.
Would you classify Jaylen Brown as such?
Not on the same level. It's like there's two different types of. I think I've heard this on another podcast, and I can't remember. Tell me if this makes sense, Ben. But there's guys who, I guess there's floor raisers and ceiling raisers. That's one thing. But there's guys who actually change the way you play. And Brown ultimately is like the team's not going to take its shape around Brown.
Yeah.
Personality-wise, I'm like, do I love the Simmons personality? Not so much. He seems like kind of akin to Tatum to me. But that's look, man, that'd give us some easy shots, man. If nothing else. Anyway, that's just one thing that's gone through my mind. I kind of wanted us to look at Ricky Rubio with the rest, with our trade exception. Mm-hmm. That was, I don't even watch him anymore. I don't even know if Ricky Rubio is washed or not. All I know is that's a style of player that I guess I like. Once again, warts and all. I love passes, even if they can't shoot. I don't know, man. What are you thinking, Ben?
The Rubio thing's interesting. Talking about the gaps that I would like to see the team fill. Rubio is that that playmaking point guard, and he has some veteran savvy, and I think a breadth of experience that would really rub off well on the rest of the guys. On the Simmons Brown thing. So to your point, yeah. So Simmons is a guy that you would design an offensive scheme around. Brown is a guy who's a Swiss Army knife that fits into your pre-existing offensive scheme very well, and both archetypes have their own high value.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends on how willing you are to make a big sweeping change.
If Danny Ainge's like, no, we don't want to do that, right? I wouldn't be like belligerent about it, but I do think that a team of that would certainly be a better regular season team. I'm 100% confident that's a better regular season team than the one we have. 100% confident of it. Simmons, I'm telling you, man, Simmons is going to drive passing, man. Passing makes such a difference. That Sixers team, when they had Ilyasova and Bellinelli and Embiid was out injured, oh my gosh, Ben Simmons was just a force of nature, man. That team was incredible. Anyway.
Do you think you can make it work without moving Brown? Obviously, this is from a crazy green teamer homer standpoint, but, positionally, Ben Simmons replaces Kemba Walker. So is there an outbound Kemba Walker for Ben Simmons trade that works in any way?
Does it have to? Does he have to? Yeah, he replaces, but Kemba Walker is probably better suited to not be the point guard offensively anyway. I think the Brown for Simmons thing is a really interesting thought experiment because it does potentially move the needle for both teams, right? It makes Philadelphia's roster fit makes way more sense, right? Same age, right? So there's no issues there. I think it significantly changes the way the Celtics play. And I think if it's just the same old thing again, like who cares, right? I think I can see a scenario in which Philadelphia is really motivated to do something, and I think it could possibly happen if they ever talked about it.
Now, we're running over an hour here, Joe, so we do have to wrap this up. I want to end on a post by Larbird33, and then I want to tell you a quick Larbird story. So this is a post made...
What a guy.
11 hours ago by Larbird33 titled Mild Optimism as we wrap up the season. I'm not going to read the whole thing because in true Larbird style, it is very long, but in a good way. Highly recommend reading it because it's all rich with substance and content. But he says, I still believe this team at full strength could rattle off 55 wins in a normal season. I stand by that. We never got to see a single game with our top 7 guys healthy, though. If you're grasping at some reasons for optimism, I gotta admit I'm struggling, but I want to remind you of some facts. I'm going to rattle off these and then I'm going to taper off because there's too much to go through. Fact number 1, if you ignore Kemba's first 10 games over a 3-week period, he's actually been excellent this season. Since that time frame when we've played at a 50-plus win pace, and he's put up numbers that are arguably better than his prime, quote-unquote prime, years in Charlotte. COVID definitely impacted Tatum. There was a 20-game stretch prior to the All-Star break where he low-key sucked. Ignore those games and the time he missed, and we've played at a 50-win pace in his games, and based on his recent play, he appears to be back to an all-NBA superstar level again. Robert Williams continues to be a difference maker in games he started and finished, where something like 10-2. And it's very frustrating how Evan Fournier had 2 false starts. But despite everything, the man is shooting 46%, 45%, 78% as a Celtic, and we have 6 seasons of evidence that he's capable of averaging 15 to 19 points per game on high efficiency and can knock down open shots. Neesmith's rise. And this is where Larbird really shines. If you know Larbird, you speak to him on a regular basis. He bought super low on the Neesmith stock, like pre-draft purchasing of Neesmith stock. Neesmith's rise, we can hope, is legit. The last 6 games, 12 points, 5.3 rebounds, 64, 47, and 87, shooting in 22.4 minutes per game. Now putting up very respectable season shooting splits on 45, 39, and 77 for a player who came into the league expected to be the best shooter out of college. I'm going to stop there. And he goes on to talk about how the team has always done their best work when the masses counted them out, and there's a lot more content to get through. And the comment section is also great. Thoughts on these sort of points of optimism there, Joe, before we wrap this up? Because I think Larbird makes some good points there.
Yeah, but he sort of does the thing where he's like, if you take out the games where we played on a 30-win pace, we're actually on a 50-win pace. You know, and it's like, this is why I look, he does have a point. And look, if we were normally healthy, we would have won a lot more games. Okay? In my view, you know, there's plenty of 51 teams who are never going to win the title, right? And in my view, the way the Celtics are currently constructed, that's what we would have proven to have been. We simply don't have enough low variance ways to score when it counts, and defensively, we're just not impactful. That said, 51 season's still pretty entertaining. You know, like, we don't have a God-given right to win championships all the time. And you know, like, if we win 50 games next season, I'll enjoy it. You know, I will. We don't as fans, you know, we've got to be really grateful for what we've had. We've had like 3 bad seasons in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
The other 7 have been epic. Like, great fun.
To one of Larbird's points, the the thing that bothers me with we haven't seen our best 7 play at all is that we've definitely seen our best 6 and our best 5 play, and we weren't particularly good with them.
That's
so
right.
I don't, in my mind, as much as I love to be optimistic and I love to, escape with these thoughts of like, we could have been great, we should have been great. Like, how much better would we really have been with 1 extra good player, with 7 awesome players rather than 5 or 6? I just think that the really good teams, or even the decent teams,
They get it
show
done.
who they are with like 75% of their roster. Yeah, they get it done. Exactly. I want to tell a quick La Bird story before we wrap this one up, because we have gone crazy over time, but it's a good therapy session. We've gone over time, and they haven't charged us for it, Joe.
Can I
so
just
that's been great.
real quick? Larry Bird, La Bird, I think is right about Neesmith, and he looks to me like a genuine NBA role player, which is great at the 15th.
Of course.
Pick.
Yeah.
Continue.
How dare I not touch on the Neesmith thing more? That's really the one point we wanted to emphasize and if not end on. La Bird 33 has, if you listen to this podcast, it has not been on the podcast for a little while. It's officially retired from the podcast. A couple of reasons there. It seems like his life there in Seattle is like going back to normal, and he's being asked to come back into the office, and he's like just generally way too busy to make time for us. And due to daylight savings, he used to come on at about 1 a.m. his time, which was about 7 p.m. our time or my time. And now that's been pushed out to like 3 or 4 a.m. So it's just not possible at all. But he's still in our Slack chat. He's still sending the Neesmith takes, the Tatum takes, the 7 healthy men takes to us on a regular basis. And we're still talking to him regularly. And he sent me a care package in the mail the other day, Joe. And was in response to a care package that I sent him a little while ago, which is something that I send to anyone who sort of has tenure on this podcast. And it contained just the most insanely like thoughtful, well thought out items. And I'm not going to remember them all, unfortunately, despite what I just said. But a pack of the Tatum like barbecue chip ruffles, which I think I might be the sole person in Australia to possess that particular packet of chips.
Anything to declare?
Which is insane.
Anything to declare, Mr. Ellis?
It got through. It did take a while. I was following the tracking. He sent it to me. He sent me the tracking link when he was like, I sent this ages ago. It's been stuck in Australian customs for a long time. I'm not sure if it's coming. I wanted you to know that I sent it. So here's the link. Anyway, it arrived. It contained like some Celtics clothes and some legitimately signed basketball cards.
Cool,
so
man.
a signed Ricky Davis card, a signed Doc Rivers card, and not like signed in the player comes into the card manufacturing place and signs the cards. But like he had met these players and they had like pulled out a pen and signed them. And he sent me those,
man.
which is insane. And a bunch of other stuff, which I have posted on Twitter. So check out our Twitter feed if you want to see the full care package there. But just in this age where the internet seems to be sort of tearing apart the fabric of society, this is just a nice, amicable exchange. He came on, he did our podcast for a little while. I feel like we're mates, even though we never met each other. And in sort of a pen pal style, we sent each other gifts through the mail, and we're just people who met each other online. So I just think that's a nice,
cool,
well bookended tale.
And I think he'll be
That's all I
back.
got.
I think he'll be back when daylight savings goes back to
I hope you're right, man.
when we're on and they're off. Yeah, I hope so. I really enjoyed potting with him.
Yeah, likewise. Look, that's going to do it for this one. We've gone way over time. Hopefully, if you're listening, you feel a little better about the state of the team going forward. Although, based on the Tatum stuff, I don't know. Hopefully, you're feeling a little bit better about just the season ending and that we can sort of take a breath and wait and see what happens. Joe, thanks for coming on. Love your work, mate. Thanks again.
Hey, thanks, Ben. Hopefully you'll still be able to sleep at night after my Tatum takes.
I'm going to be lying awake all night, thanks to you, Joe. Well, look, there's still a small chunk of season remaining. We will be back to talk about it all. Until then, go Celtics. Peace.